Hello, this is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs for our number 4 live video chat. One question people have asked me, how do they chat with me? All you have to do is comment. The comments pop up and I see what you say and I can answer your questions. Today I've got Max and Rosie with me. Here's Maximo. This is one of our videos we're doing this week, is how to make this striped bandana. And Rosie Bell is showing you this one in different colors, so you can make it patriotic. Oh, she is a kissy girl. So you can make it patriotic or you can make it striped. Anyway, wanted you all to see my pups today because really, Maximo and Rosie are the stars of Posh Pooch Designs. I just sort of put the stuff together. So, did you see the question today? Today's question was, why did the crocheter join? I forgot the question. Oh my goodness. Why did the crocheter join the online dating site? If you know the answer, comment. Okay, now for today's little chat, we're going to talk about what do I need, what tools do I need to learn to crochet? And really, you just need a few things. There are thousands and thousands of things that you can purchase. Fancy hooks and fancy needles and fancy yarns and fancy scissors and all kinds of winding and all kinds of tools and things. But really, if you're just starting out, I have it narrowed down to 6 different things that will help you get started inexpensively. Because crocheting can be really, really expensive. And the same thing with knitting. Knitting can be very expensive, and we might discuss that at another time. But today we're going to discuss the 6 main tools that you need to crochet. Basically to learn to crochet. I guess I should be a little bit more, clarify that a little bit more. All right, before we get started, you've got your coffee cups ready? Are they full of coffee like mine is? Someone told me this morning they were Folger phobia, which means fear of running out of coffee. Sounds like me. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing you're going to need when you crochet or learn to crochet is you're going to need hooks. And there are tons of kinds of hooks. There's metal, there's plastic, ones with plastic handles, bamboo, ones with bamboo handles. There's ones covered in polymer clay, fancy, thick, and thin. But really, when you're first learning to crochet, the best advice I can give you is go to your local Hobby Lobby, Joann's, even Walmart and Michael's, and buy an inexpensive crochet hook. And most beginner patterns, hello Jennifer. Aww, that's sweet. To get you an inexpensive crochet hook, and a lot of beginner patterns start with an H, an I, or a J because they're a good medium. And that's a good inexpensive choice. A hook, a ball of yarn, and a yarn needle. That's excellent. Okay, now, so you can buy all kinds of fancy hooks, but if you're not sure and you don't know what you're learning yet, and it's brand new, go ahead and just get an inexpensive hook. All right, the next thing you're going to need is some way to measure your work because gauge is very important. Remember that word, gauge, is very important. And you this is one I got from Michael's, really fancy one. I think it was like 88 cents or something. This is a great kind, and it has inches and centimeters on both sides. Or you can use these kind. And gauge is very important because everybody crochets differently. And everybody, someone might crochet loosely and you might crochet tightly. And you say, I made a 4x4 swatch and mine is not 4x4, it's 6x6. You crochet looser, and it's good to know those things. Also, it's good for measuring, sometimes patterns will just say, make a 12-inch square. And so you can use your measuring tools to measure to make sure you're square. Hello, Wanda. Thanks for joining in. Okay, now, these are so inexpensive. I think this is a Hobby Lobby one for like $1 or something. And every time I go to Hobby Lobby, I get about 3 or 4 of them because my grandkids love to play with them, and I kind of like to play with them too. So you need an inexpensive crochet hook and an inexpensive way to measure your gauge and your items. The third thing you need is scissors. Now, you don't have to go out and buy an expensive pair like this. These are my sewing scissors. No one's allowed to touch these. But what I do, this is a tiny little pair of scissors, and this little pair of scissors was kind of expensive because they're embroidery scissors. So what I do is in the fall, when all the children's safety scissors are on sale, I go and get 4 or 5 pairs. They're usually like 55 cents or something at Walmart or Target. Get your 4 or 5 pairs, stick them in a bunch of different places, because all you need to do is cut yarn. You don't need to cut fabric. You don't need to cut leather, you know, unless you're working with leather, then you might need better scissors. But it's good, and these, I mean, you just need to cut yarn. So you just need an inexpensive pair of scissors. So we're talking a couple of bucks for a hook, $1 or $2 for something to measure with, not even $1 for a pair of safety scissors. Okay, the next thing you need, and I use these a lot, and a lot of crocheters don't, but I do, and that is your stitch markers. I have several kinds. This is one that clips. These are my favorite kind. They're little, let me get the green one because you can see it better. They're a little tiny, and you don't clip anything, you just slide it in. And they're perfect for marking corners. If you're just learning how to make a granny square, it's great to mark those 4 corners. Because sometimes when you're going, or if you're watching, you know, Netflix or your favorite movie while you're crocheting, you forget where that corner is. You got little markers. A lot of times shawls, when you're working from the V and you want to mark that V, if you're working down, either way, you want to mark that, anything like that. Or sometimes it will say every 10 stitches, so you can mark every 10 stitches. Something else that, I mean, these are really inexpensive, like $4 or $5 for a bag of about 20. But something else that you can do is just cut off a piece of yarn that is a different color than what you're working on, and you can feed that piece of yarn through your work as you go, and that you can also do that if you don't want to buy a stitch marker. So there's something you can do, costs you nothing if you've already got some yarn. Okay, let's backtrack a little. An inexpensive hook, inexpensive way to measure, cheapy scissors, free stitch markers, or a couple of bucks for some bag of stitch markers. And another thing that you're going to need is what I call a yarn needle. Some people call them a tapestry needle. And you want to make sure that the eye on the needle is big enough for your yarn to go through, because there's no better way to tie in your ends, or weave in your ends, not tie in, than to use a yarn needle. And you just thread it on there, and you can weave it in and out so much better than trying to hook it, and then you get tags, and you don't want to knot if you don't have to. Now, sometimes I do knot, depending on what I'm doing, and then I weave in my ends. I know I said a no-no. There's not supposed to be any knots in crochet, but I do knot sometimes. Hello, Gloria. Thanks for joining in. You can also use plastic needles. I find they tend to break a little bit because I'm kind of rough. And another thing I discovered, this is looks more like a shuttle, doesn't it? I bought a pack of these, and they come in, I think, 5 or 6 different sizes, and they work really good because I'm not as young as I used to be. And sometimes my eyes don't see the hole in the needle. And this is really great. You just put the yarn through, and then you can weave in your ends with that. Okay, so inexpensive way to get started. But we're missing one thing, aren't we? Yarn. Yarn can range from the cheapy to exuberant amounts, depending on what it's made out of and how it's made. My suggestion is, if you're just learning to crochet, to pick you up some Red Heart Super Saver, or maybe some I Love This yarn. These yarns are very inexpensive. Jiffy yarn's a great one to learn with if you want to learn chunkier yarns. Don't spend a lot of money at first. Get comfortable with your hooks and with your measuring and cutting and marking and weaving in your ends. Find some inexpensive free patterns. Now, I have lots of free patterns on my blog, and you can also go to Ravelry. Great resource for finding free patterns that you can try. And I think if you put in easy you can get a whole multitude of really easy patterns. And be sure and click free on the Ravelry thing. And oh my man, tons of stuff. And you know, starting with single crochet, then double crochet, and working your way up from beginner to easy. Tons and tons of free patterns. And what you can do, like I said, is get you some inexpensive yarns to play with. Because that way, if you knot it up or you mess up and you want to just toss it, it's not that really big of a deal. A lot of times we pull it out, and that's called frogging. Because we go ribbit, 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 and we tear it out. I know, I'm nuts. It's okay. But anyway, when I was first learning to crochet many years ago, when I was 15, I actually, Kmart at that time, I grew up in Oklahoma, and Kmart at that time had yarn. And so I bought like 2 or 3 skeins of yarn, I think, for like 68 cents or something. And I would make something with that yarn and practice my stitches, and then I'd pull it all out and ball it back up, and then I'd make something else and I'd ball it back up. And then one day I discovered, oh, the yarn tells me what hook they would like you to use on this. So then I got that hook. And that's another thing that you can do. Like we last week's video, we talked about what all the symbols mean on the yarn. And one of them that they give you for crochet, it tells you the recommended hook for that yarn. And so, yes, always start with small projects. Very good advice, Gloria. That's why I said at Ravelry, you can put in easy and lots of neat little bags or tags or little things that are super easy to practice those stitches on. But anyway, inexpensive yarn that it's okay if you mess up. I mean, really, you could probably get all of these things for less than 10 bucks because Red Heart Super Saver is like what, $2.97 at Target or not Target, Walmart, Michael's. It's less than $3. Okay, so there's $3. You know, needles cost you maybe a couple of bucks. You don't have to have a stitch marker. It's a good idea to get some, but you don't have to. Inexpensive pair of scissors. If you've got a tape measure at home, use it. If not, you know, buck, like I said, and your inexpensive hook. You know, and if you want to get a couple of skeins, you might spend $15. And it's a great way to learn. And another great way to learn is to ask questions. Never feel like you cannot ask the designer questions. I got a question, I don't know, it was this morning or last night. She said, what is gauge? For me, I think, oh yeah, you know, I know what gauge is. But a brand new crocheter does not. Another really good resource, besides asking the designer of the pattern you're working on, is to Google. I found a really great resource also. It's called Crochet for Dummies. And I used to send it to people trying to help them out answering their questions. And one lady kind of got offended because I think she thought I was calling her a dummy. But I wasn't. I love that site. It has great drawn pictures. And it makes it really easy. If someone has a question, you can give them the link that explains it and send that link to them. So if I've sent you one for Crochet for Dummies, it was not saying you were a dummy. I use that site too. Okay, well that was our discussion today. Now I want to talk about our giveaway. If you're just tuning in, we have a wonderful giveaway. Today, Pam from Sincerely Pam has offered to give away 2 of her patterns from her Ravelry shop to one lucky person. And all you have to do is answer the question we asked at the beginning of the video. Do you remember what it was? Oh, thanks. Well, you know, thank you for saying I'm fun to watch, because I want it to be fun. I want us to have fun, and I want you to be able to look at me and say, that's Sara from Posh Pooch Designs, because it's good to put a face with someone, you know, to make it a little more personal. Anyway, our question, why did the crocheter join the online dating site? If you know the answer, put that in the comments. Any comment that is added to the video between now and Thursday morning at 9:30 will be entered to win these 2 free patterns from Pam at Sincerely Pam. The link is in the event, but I will also add her link when we're all done with the video so that you can go and look at her patterns. She is another person that I think has wonderful, unique patterns. And there are a lot of people out there that have similar, I'm not going to call them copies because that's not nice, but a lot of similar stuff. Her